Hi guys, welcome back to an episode of SC Student Loan Speaks. I have Jonathan Rhodes with me today. He's one of our outreach managers, and we are going to continue our conversation on understanding loans. So if you tuned in previously for part one, we talked about federal loans from an undergraduate perspective, the direct loan program. This time we are going to dive into private loans. And so to hopefully help you all navigate and understand the difference between the two to figure out what you need in order to achieve your dreams. Okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. So SC Student Loan, we are a private educational lender. We are a nonprofit private educational lender. And then there are also for-profits out there as well. We won't mention any names. You can Google it later, okay? But there are differences between your for-profits and your nonprofits. And as a nonprofit, we're going to speak from that perspective today because we live in that world.
Of course.
Awesome. So first things first, and we can just kind of talk about it from what South Carolina Student Loan has to offer, okay? So if someone were interested in receiving a loan from SC Student Loan, what do they do? Like, what do we do? Where do they go?
That's a great question, and I get that question a lot from parents. Typically, how this works is, they're going through their financial aid process, and they'll probably receive their final bill to know exactly this is how much my student needs to be able to start school in August for that fall semester. They contact us, and say, how can I kind of fill in that gap to be able to take care of my balance, basically. So I always advise parents, look at your options, but of course, I'm always going to be an advocate for South Carolina student loans.
Right.
That's what we do. But there's a great thing about South Carolina student loan where I always advise parents, we have a tool on our website.
Yes, we do.
The Find Your Rate tool.
Yes.
This is very important for a lot of parents to know exactly what your standing is before you actually want to apply for a loan.
Yes.
So I always tell parents, go on our website. We have great loans that's provided for parents.
Yes.
And the great thing about us is, as well, we can do it two ways.
Okay.
You can do private lending for the student, but what do we know about an 18-year-old trying to apply for a loan? They will need a what?
A cosigner.
A cosigner. So parents are never off the hook with that. So I try to tell parents that, but they can apply for that. The interest rate will be what it be. You'll kind of know exactly what that is. But parents can also apply on behalf of the student.
Yes.
Some parents say, I don't want my student to have any skin in the game right now. Maybe for that first year, we'll take responsibility for that. And parents can apply and have no involvement with the student, and the interest rate goes down a little bit lower as well. So we just want to be kind of that bridge for students and parents to be able to pay that balance off. And that Find Your Rate tool on our website is a godsend because that kind of gives parents an understanding of what I could be looking at if I do need a loan, to be able to help my student be able to start school in the fall.
Perfect. So there's the Find My Rate tool on our website. And you said we have a couple different options.
Yes.
A student can have a loan in their name
They can.
under the undergraduate or graduate option. But usually our undergraduate students will need a little bit of help with a cosigner. And so a parent can opt to have their student be a co-borrower and have some skin in the game, or they can choose to not have their student listed. And as an educational lender, all of our funds go directly to the college.
Yes.
And it can help with indirect as well as direct expenses, right?
And that's a great thing because a lot of students do need some of those costs, especially when it comes to the meal plan or your housing plan, books and fees, technology fees. If you don't know now, look in the camera. College is not cheap. I'll say that. So these expenses do add up.
They add up.
And sometimes, again, you're talking to an 18-year-old coming out of high school. They have to pay that balance. They don't understand the severity of it, but parents do.
Yeah.
So parents always have to kind of look more into it. How can I make this happen for my students?
Yeah.
So South Carolina Student Loan is always going to be that resource, that asset to be able to help South Carolina families. And the great thing about South Carolina Student Loan, which I love, even if your student is looking to go out of state for college, we can still help.
Yes.
We can still help. So that's always a great thing for our families in South Carolina to be able to be a resource and an asset to be able to help. as they're looking to attend college in the fall.
Yeah, because as a nonprofit, we do have a mission
Yes.
that we are focused on the state of South Carolina. So being a resident of South Carolina or attending a South Carolina school is
Yes.
kind of, aside from the credit requirement, is like our baseline because we're trying to build the workforce here in South Carolina. So that's one of the things that drew me here
Yes.
to work here. So we want to make sure that we are building our workforce and supporting those students. So
Can I add one more thing to that?
Absolutely.
With that, I just want to put that plug in there. Our loan advisors are really, really great. I know we talk a lot about the loans, but the people that we actually have
Yes.
here at South Carolina Student Loan, they bring a wealth of experience, but just the culture that we have here, the environment, I mean, it's a great place to work. I love it here, and I'm always going to be an advocate because everyone knows me. When I go South Carolina Student Loan, that's a loan guy, and that's okay because I want them to know exactly we are a resource and we can help you. How can we help you?
Yeah.
That's the main thing I always want to get
yeah,
across.
I think that's something that helps us stand out as well as a nonprofit. Everybody's here in South Carolina, and so I like to say, you call us, you're going to get a Southern accent.
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
it might be a different dialect from across South Carolina, but we're gonna have a little twang when you pick up the phone and call us. Or we have really cool options for chats as well.
Yes.
So private loans, you have the cool Find Your Rate tool. Usually colleges will have a list of historical private lenders on their website, right?
Agreed.
So if you're not quite sure where to start, your college will have great resources on their website as well. One of the things that you mentioned previously was it's when they get the bill that they start to look for some other funding. So these are people and families who have done the financial aid process the right way.
Yes.
They did their FAFSA, right? They may have received some scholarships from different places.
Yes.
They may have some federal funds, some state funds, but they still have a gap between what they received in all of their free aid and then what they have remaining. And so that's where your private lenders are there to support you.
And that's a great point because going back to just thinking about your cost of attendance is very, very important. And I know we're having this conversation about private lending, but everything goes kind of hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of parents, they sometimes assume that, I apply for this FAFSA, students getting the information, I may have qualified for the maximum amount, but you may not have. So when you get that final bill in the summertime from that college, you want to make sure that you're kind of in a position where, if I owe $11,000, $12,000, is this going to be something if I'm going to get a private loan? Or if I'm going to, pay out of pocket, because some parents have to put themselves in a situation where, this is unexpected, but I want to be able to be there for my child.
Yeah.
So sometimes you definitely want to make sure that cost of attendance is and I know we mentioned that, but private lending is something that you want to make sure that you got a handle on.
Yeah.
Because, cost is only going to go up as you become a junior and a senior and you're taking those advanced level courses.
Yeah. So one of the things that how we have things structured here is that we have some different options when it comes to our loans. So there's an option for a fixed rate. There's an option for variable rates. You get to pick your repayment terms. So do you want to pay only interest right now, or do you want to completely defer it? And the time frame that you want to pay it back. So you don't necessarily receive those same repayment options in the federal loan program.
Correct.
Their program
Correct.
is typically a 10-year fixed interest rate, and they have some options with some income repayment plans that can help you with that. But your private lenders will typically give you a little bit more options there. In addition, typically, let's talk for South Carolina Student Loan, we don't have origination fees. So that means that what you borrow actually goes all to your school. So when you have conversations with families about the repayment options, tell me what type of responses you receive.
Listen, this is why, again, I love what I do. Because a lot of parents don't understand what their options are. So when they're looking at it and they're looking at, maybe the Federal Plus loan, which
Yes.
a lot of
AKA
parents,
the parent
plus loan. Yes, that's what we call it. I don't
Yes.
know if they call it that now, but the Federal Plus loan, the Parent Plus loan, has a interest, origination fees with the interest rate. So that could be, because they're really kind of laxed on. So they will, more than likely get approved. But again, your interest rate and your origination fees could be up there. And what we do is we don't have those origination fees.
We
So
don't.
that helps out, parents a lot.
Yeah.
Especially once they actually apply for it. And one thing that I love with South Carolina student loan as well, some people may look at, okay, I'll owe $12,000, but I'll apply for 15. The school is going to say, no, you just need the 12 to cover your cost of attendance. You don't need that. And that's something that we take pride in. Just know exactly, you don't need the extra,
Right.
because we would love extra. Because what I know, and I'll say this, what I know about students in South Carolina, you guys love Chick-fil-A. And I do too as well. So I want to make sure that those extra funds could be something that could be helpful. But again, we want to make sure that you don't forget about responsible borrowing. That's huge
Yeah.
for us to be able to maintain our reputation, being a good standard in the state of South Carolina, and keep plugging forward with that.
Yeah, so the last thing that I just want to point out and mention is that we recommend students to start their financial aid journey with their FAFSA.
Yes.
Part 1 talked about the direct loan that was made in the student's name. Their interest rates are typically going to be very good for the student, so take those out. But when parents start to have to fill in that gap, the way that the program works on the federal side, it doesn't matter what your credit score is. If you're approved, everybody gets the same interest
Yes.
rate. And so that's where some of our parents say, well, oof, right now it's a 9.08, and it changes every year, but that's a little steep, and I want to see what my options are. And that's where private lending can come in and give you those different interest rate options, different repayment options that best suits the family and the student at that time. So the last thing that I will say is that if you have an option, students, if you have an option to at least pay interest while you're in school, I highly, highly recommend for you to do that. It does help you get a lower interest rate. And then upon graduating, if you need to do something different, there are some options for consolidation and refinancing. And maybe we'll do another podcast on that. But thank you so much for joining me today.
I love this conversation, and we need to have more like this. So I really appreciate this.
Yes. So that was part 2 of Understanding Loans, the private student loan edition. If you have questions, comments, drop them in the chat below or send us a message on our website. We will be glad to follow back up with you. But until next time, we'll see you then.